I've been delivering food for about 2 years now, mostly working for this Chinese place downtown that stays open until 2 a.m. on weekends. The money's decent, especially with tips, and I needed something flexible since I'm taking classes during the day. Most nights are pretty routine. Pick up the order, drive to the address, drop it off, and head back. But there was this one Saturday night that still makes me uncomfortable thinking about it. It was around 12:30 a.m. when I got called back from my break. We'd been pretty busy that night, but things were starting to slow down. My manager handed me an order, some lo mein and fried rice, and gave me the address. It was for a house about 15 minutes out in one of those newer suburban neighborhoods. Nothing seemed weird about it at first. The drive there was normal enough. The neighborhood was quiet, with most houses having their lights off already. I found the street and started looking for the house number. That's when things started feeling off. The address I was looking for should have been right where I was, but instead of a house, there was just an empty lot with some construction materials scattered around. I double-checked the receipt, thinking maybe I'd misread it, but the address was definitely correct. I figured maybe the customer had given the wrong address by mistake, so I called the number on the order. It rang a few times before someone picked up. It was a woman's voice, and she sounded kind of groggy, like I'd woken her up. "Hello?" she said. "Hi, this is your delivery driver. I'm here with your Chinese food order, but I think there might be an issue with the address. I'm at the location you gave, but there's no house here." There was a long pause before she responded. "What? I didn't order any food? What time is it?" I explained that someone had placed an order using this number about an hour ago, and she insisted that she'd been asleep and definitely hadn't ordered anything. She seemed genuinely confused and a little annoyed that I'd woken her up. I apologized and hung up, thinking it was probably just some kids playing a prank. But then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. There was a house directly across the street from the empty lot, and I could see someone standing in the front window watching me. The person was just a silhouette against the light from inside the house, but they were definitely looking right at my car. I sat there for a minute, not sure what to do, when I saw the front door of that house open. A man came out and started walking across the street toward me. He was probably in his 40s, wearing just a t-shirt and jeans, despite how cold it was. As he got closer, I could see he was smiling, but something about it didn't seem right. It was too wide, and his eyes looked kind of excited in a way that made me really uncomfortable. He came up to my driver's side window, and I rolled it down just a crack. "You looking for someone?" he asked, still with that weird smile. "I was just delivering food, but I think I got the wrong address," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh, that was probably for me," he said quickly. "I've been waiting for that. How much do I owe you?" Something about the way he said it didn't feel right. If he had ordered the food, why would he have given an address to an empty lot instead of his own house? And why hadn't he just called me over when he saw me sitting there confused? "Actually, I need to verify the order with my manager first," I said. "Let me just call the restaurant real quick." His smile faltered a little, and I could see him getting agitated. "Come on, man. I'm hungry. I've been waiting forever for this food." I started rolling my window back up and told him I'd be right back after I made the call. But instead of stepping away from my car, he put his hands on the window, trying to stop me from rolling it up completely. "Hey, wait," he said, and his voice had changed completely. The fake friendliness was gone, and now he sounded angry. "Just give me the food." That's when I saw movement in my peripheral vision. There were 2 more people coming out of the house, a woman and another man. They were walking across the street toward my car, and none of them looked like they were just curious neighbors. I didn't wait to see what they wanted. I threw the car in drive and hit the gas, pulling away from the curb as fast as I could. In my rearview mirror, I could see all three of them standing in the street watching me leave. The original guy was yelling something, but I couldn't hear what over the sound of my engine. I drove straight back to the restaurant and told my manager what happened. He was pretty understanding about it and said he'd had drivers run into weird situations before. We tried calling the number from the order again, but it just went straight to voicemail this time. I never found out what those people actually wanted, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't Chinese food. The whole thing felt like some kind of setup, and I still wonder what would have happened if I'd gotten out of my car or handed over the food. Ever since then, I always trust my gut when something feels off about a delivery, even if I can't explain exactly why. I've been doing food delivery for about 8 months now, mostly through Grubhub and sometimes DoorDash when it's slow. It's not bad work, and the flexible hours work perfect with my part-time job at the grocery store. Most of the time, deliveries are pretty straightforward. Pick up the food, drive to the address, drop it off, and move on to the next one. But there was this one night that still bothers me whenever I think about it. It was a Thursday around 11:30 p.m., and I was getting ready to call it a night when a decent order popped up on my app. It was for this apartment complex about 10 minutes away that I'd delivered to a few times before. Nothing fancy, just one of those older complexes with maybe 40 units spread across a few buildings. The order was pretty standard, some Chinese food totaling around $25. The tip looked good, so I accepted it and headed to the restaurant. The pickup went fine, and I made my way over to the complex. I'd been there before, so I knew the layout pretty well. The buildings were numbered, and the customer was in Building C, Apartment 18. I parked near the building and grabbed the food from my passenger seat. The complex was really quiet that night, with most windows dark and only a few porch lights on. Building C was toward the back of the complex, and as I walked up to it, I noticed that the main hallway light was out. It wasn't completely dark, since there were some security lights outside, but it was definitely dimmer than usual. I found apartment 18 on the second floor and knocked on the door. I waited for about a minute, but nobody answered. I knocked again, a little louder this time, thinking maybe they hadn't heard me. Still nothing. I pulled out my phone and called the number from the order. It rang several times before going to voicemail. I tried texting them through the app, letting them know I was outside their door with their food. A few minutes went by, and I was starting to get frustrated. This happens sometimes. People order food and then fall asleep or leave without canceling the order. I was about to head back to my car when I heard a door open somewhere behind me. I turned around and saw a woman standing in the doorway of apartment 16, just 2 doors down from where I was supposed to deliver. She was probably in her 30s, wearing pajamas and a robe. "Are you looking for someone?" she asked, stepping out into the hallway. "Yeah, I'm delivering food to apartment 18, but nobody's answering," I said. She looked confused for a second, then said, "That's weird. Nobody's lived in 18 for like 2 months now. The guy who was there moved out, and they haven't rented it to anyone new yet." That didn't make sense. Someone had clearly placed an order and given this address. I showed her my phone with the delivery details, and she looked even more confused. "That's definitely strange," she said. "Maybe they meant a different apartment number?" Sometimes people get confused about which unit they're in. I thanked her and decided to try calling the customer one more time. This time, someone actually picked up. Hello? It was a man's voice, and he sounded kind of out of breath. Hi, this is your delivery driver. I'm here at apartment 18, but the neighbor says nobody lives there. Are you sure you gave me the right address? There was a pause. Then he said, Yeah, that's right. Apartment 18. Are you there now? Yes, I'm standing right outside the door. Okay, just wait there for a minute. I'll be right there. I hung up and stood there, feeling really confused. The neighbor was still watching from her doorway, and she looked just as puzzled as I was. A few minutes went by, and I started hearing footsteps coming up the stairs. But instead of coming from the direction of the main entrance, the sounds were coming from the other end of the hallway, near the back stairwell. A man appeared from around the corner, walking toward me. He was tall and kind of skinny, wearing dark clothes. As he got closer, I could see that he looked really nervous or agitated about something. His hands were shaking, and he kept looking around like he was expecting someone else to show up. You got my food? He asked when he reached me. Something felt really off about the whole situation. This guy clearly didn't live in apartment 18, and the way he was acting was making me uncomfortable. Plus, why would he come up the back stairs instead of just opening the door to the apartment I was standing in front of? Actually, I think there might be some confusion with the address, I said, taking a step back toward the main stairwell. His expression changed immediately, and he looked angry. What do you mean? Just give me the food. The neighbor was still watching from her doorway, and I could tell she was getting uncomfortable too. I made a quick decision and started walking toward the stairs. I need to verify this with my manager first, I said, not looking back. I heard him say something behind me, but I was already heading down the stairs as fast as I could without running. I got to my car and immediately drove away, still holding onto the bag of food. I never found out what that guy actually wanted, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't the person who placed the order. The whole thing felt like some kind of setup, and I still wonder what would have happened if I'd handed over the food. I've been delivering food for almost 3 years now, working mostly for this local pizza place that stays open until 3 a.m. on weekends. It's pretty good money, especially late at night when most other drivers have gone home. I know the area really well by now, and I've got my regular customers who order from us all the time. Most of them are pretty normal. College kids, people working late shifts, or just folks who get hungry late at night. There was this one customer, though, who I'd been delivering to for about 6 months. He always ordered the same thing, a large pepperoni pizza and a 2-liter of Coke. And he always ordered around the same time, usually between 1:30 and 2 a.m. The address was for this apartment complex on the edge of town that wasn't in the greatest area, but it wasn't terrible either. The guy always tipped decent, and he'd always meet me at the front door of the building, so I never had to go up to his actual apartment. What was weird about him was that he never really talked much. Most customers will at least say thanks or make some small talk, but this guy would just take the food, hand me the money, and go back inside without saying a word. He was probably in his 40s, kind of heavy set, and always wore the same dark hoodie. I just figured he was antisocial or something, so I never really thought much about it. Anyways, it was a Saturday night in late October, and I'd been working since about 10 p.m. It had been pretty busy, but things were starting to slow down as we got closer to closing time. Around 1:45 a.m., I got the usual order from this guy. Same thing as always, large pepperoni and a Coke. I grabbed the pizza from the kitchen and headed out to his apartment complex. When I pulled up to the building, I noticed something different right away. Instead of waiting by the front door like he always did, he was standing out in the parking lot next to a car I'd never seen before. It was an older sedan, maybe from the late 90s, and it looked pretty beat up. The guy was talking to someone who was sitting in the driver's seat, but I couldn't see who it was because the windows were tinted. I parked my car and got out with the pizza. As I walked over, the guy in the hoodie saw me coming and said something to whoever was in the car. Then the car door opened and another man got out. This guy was younger, maybe in his 20s, and he looked really nervous about something. He kept looking around the parking lot like he was expecting someone else to show up. When I got closer, the regular customer walked over to me like normal. But instead of taking the pizza right away, he just stood there for a second, looking at me. Then he asked if I was the only driver working that night. That was the first time he'd ever really said anything to me besides just thanks, so it caught me off guard. "Yeah, there's just me and one other guy, but he went home about an hour ago," I said. He nodded and looked back at the other guy by the car. Then he asked me what time we closed and if I had any more deliveries after this one. I told him we closed at 3 a.m. and that this was probably my last delivery of the night. The whole time we were talking, the younger guy was just standing there staring at me, and it was making me really uncomfortable. Finally, the regular customer took the pizza and handed me the money, but instead of going back inside like he always did, he just stood there. The younger guy walked over and whispered something to him, and then they both looked at me. "Hey, do you want to make some extra money?" the regular customer asked. I asked him what he meant, and he said they needed someone to drive them somewhere and that they'd pay me $50 for it. He said their car was having problems and they just needed a ride to pick up something from a friend. The whole situation was starting to feel really weird, and I could tell something wasn't right about it. "I can't really do that," I said. "I'm still on the clock and I need to get back to the restaurant." The younger guy looked annoyed and said something under his breath that I couldn't hear. Then the regular customer asked if I was sure and said they really needed the help. I told them I was sorry but I couldn't do it and started walking back toward my car. As I was getting in, I heard the younger guy say something about following me, but I couldn't make out the exact words. I looked back and saw them both getting into the beat-up sedan. I waited for a second to see what they were going to do, and sure enough, as I pulled out of the parking lot, they started following me. I drove back toward the restaurant, taking my usual route, and they stayed behind me the whole way. When I got to a red light about halfway back, the sedan pulled up right next to me. The younger guy was driving, and he rolled down his window and motioned for me to roll mine down too. I shook my head and kept looking straight ahead, waiting for the light to turn green. He started yelling something at me, but I couldn't hear what he was saying with my windows up. Then the light turned green, and I took off as fast as I could. I looked in my rearview mirror and saw them trying to catch up, but I knew the area better than they did, so I took a few quick turns down some side streets and lost them. When I got back to the restaurant, I was pretty shaken up. I told my manager what happened, and he said I should probably call the police and report it. I ended up filing a report that night, giving them the description of both guys and the license plate number from the sedan that I'd managed to remember. A few days later, a detective called me and said they'd looked into it. Turns out the sedan had been reported stolen earlier that week, and they found it abandoned in a parking lot across town. They never found the two guys though, and the detective said there wasn't much else they could do without more evidence. The regular customer never ordered from us again after that night. I kept expecting to see his usual order pop up, but it never did. I still drive by that apartment complex sometimes when I'm doing other deliveries, and I always wonder what those guys were really planning to do if I'd agreed to give them that ride. I'm just glad I trusted my instincts and got out of there when I did.